Hi everyone, my name is Scott Pugh, Principal of Jennason LLC. In today's mini webinar, we're going to demonstrate how the Jennason Serialization test tool can be used as a really integral and critical component of any implementation or initiative that you may be undertaking, which focuses on furthering your exchange of serialization data with downstream entities. That could be furthering your exchange with distribution warehouses, with 3PLs, or even starting to exchange serialization data with your downstream customers. So what we'll show in the demonstration is how the serialization test tool can help support those efforts and really be a key and central component in the implementation phase of those types of efforts. And it can do that essentially in two ways, as we'll show in this demonstration. First is the tool acts as a simulator that allows you to simulate the common use cases of the upstream activities in this case. So things like the commissioning, the aggregation, and the shipping that would typically occur at a packaging site or a CMO, for example. It allows you to simulate these use cases and generates two key outputs. The first is it generates the corresponding EPCIS test data for the scenario that you develop within the tool. And so with this EPCIS test data, you can then use that to essentially simulate the exact same data feeds, again, that would be coming from your packaging sites or your CMOs. And the test tool has the flexibility, as we'll show, to make sure that it's generating the EPCIS test data in a way that meets the specifications of your specific L4, L5 serialization vendor. And then the second key output that we'll show in the demonstration are the barcode reports that the test tool can generate. So what this does is it actually creates PDF reports that contain the 1D and 2D barcodes that correspond to the test items that were also populated in the test data, in the EPCIS test data that was generated. So between having the test data as well as having the barcode reports, what I like to say is it's effectively like you can create product out of thin air. So ultimately what this allows you to do is to execute scenarios and simulations of those scenarios that reflect, your anticipated use cases, right? And you can do that up even to the volumes that you anticipate, right? So we can execute higher volumes of tests, we can execute more efficient tests, and again, we can do all of this without actually having to get our packaging sites or CMOs involved in any way, right? They don't actually have to run the packaging line, they don't have to even generate test data for us. We can use the test tool, as we'll see in this demonstration, to create the data and create the barcode reports very quickly. And again, that's what allows us to run more tests, more efficient tests, ultimately making sure that our systems, our serialization platforms are working as expected. So let's start the demonstration. What I'm going to do is just run through kind of a typical scenario of how we use the tool to generate a set of test data, as well as the corresponding barcode reports, and then again talk through about how that can be an integral piece as you take on your initiatives to make sure that your systems are ready to start exchanging data with downstream partners and downstream customers. So the key and primary use of the tool, again, is going to generate and to execute these simulations of common business scenarios. So the scenario we're going to run today is this ComAg ship scenario. So what this is going to do is it's going to generate test data that reflects the commissioning, the aggregation, and shipping of items. So, pretty typical set of events that would occur at a packaging site or a CMO. And as we've seen in other demonstrations of the tool, how the serialization test tool operates is it's going to basically walk us through a series of screens. It's going to capture information that allows us to build the specific scenario that we want to simulate. So this is where we can determine things like, what products do we want to use in the test data? What's the volume of items that we want to simulate being packaged and serialized? What are the locations that we want to simulate these events occurring at? So I'm going to run through these screens and basically start to build my scenario. And then when we get to the end, we'll see the outputs of the scenario, which again are going to be the generated test data as well as the PDF barcode reports. So I'm just going to go through here quickly and build my scenario, choose my product, choose a quantity of items that we want to simulate, choose my location, in this case for my commissioning of my packaging site, choose my event template. We'll just use a standard EPCIS 1.2 template. But again, these templates are an important part of the tool because that's where we can essentially make sure that the EPCIS data that the tool generates is going to meet the specifications of your serialization vendor as they require it. We're going to move on to the next screen and start building our aggregations. So let's just say we want to start building units into cases, and we'll label those cases with their own SGTINs. Then let's say we do another layer where we want to pack those cases onto pallets. So we build our pallets, and let's say we want to label those with SFCCs as would normally be done. So we build our scenario here. And then finally, we identify that we want to now get to our shipping step. And in our shipping step is where we can identify the details of either one or more shipments that we want to simulate. So things like if we want to identify specific ship from, ship to details, like from our packaging site to our distribution site. If there's ownership transfer that needs to be indicated or is part of this shipment, that can be identified as well. We can populate business transaction identifiers quite easily. The tool has a little wizards to help you generate BizTrans IDs and make sure that they're properly formatted as required by EPCIS. And then again, we can populate specific items in the shipping details like ship from, ship to, sold to type information. And so when we get through our simulation, just some last pieces of information, what's the version of EPCIS we want to use? Is there a specific structure of how we want the events populated into different messages? And then the key one here at the end is this barcode report. So we're going to click this button because we do want the PDF barcode report to be generated. And so when I click on finished, two things are going to happen. One, it's going to generate that PDF barcode report. And then two, it's going to generate the EPCIS test data. So if you recall, we're simulating about 5,000 units being packaged into cases and onto pallets. And so we can see that once we click finish here, literally just in a matter of seconds, it does both of those actions. It's created our barcode report, and here now is all of my EPCIS test messages that got generated, right? So all of my commissioning details, all of my aggregations that occurred, and then finally all of my shipping details as we defined for the shipment. And then down here, I can view the PDF barcode report that gets generated. Again, this is probably one of the more popular features within the tool, especially more recently, again, as many companies are taking on these initiatives to actually start sharing data with their downstream entities. So this PDF barcode report, you could directly email it to your distribution resources, to your 3PL, even directly to your customers, and they can now use this PDF barcode report as if it was a real product, right? So you'll separately facilitate the communication of the serialization data to them, right? And that's what you'll be using this test data to first send into your L4, L5 platform and make sure it's operating as expected. And again, one of the key points there would be to make sure that it's properly triggering the data to go to your downstream partners and entities. But then again, your partners and entities can use the 1D and 2D barcodes that they get from you in this PDF barcode report to actually then test their activities, right? So they could use, let's say, this pallet barcode to test, receiving in that pallet in their system. They can just directly scan this barcode, or they could test pick, pack, ship operations by using these unit level barcodes. And again, that can help not only facilitate the testing of their systems, but also might help, again, in the testing of your own system as well, because now they can also facilitate maybe other activities of after capturing information of them handling your products and then sending the serialization data for those events back to you. So receiving events or outbound customer shipment events, for example. All of this, again, we can do very easily, very quickly now, because we can do it all in a simulated mode, in a completely virtual mode. We don't require, again, actual product to be run. We don't impact packaging sites. We don't impact your CMOs. This allows you to perform all these operations, again, in a completely virtual sense. So again, that's the barcode report. And then also, as we know directly from the test tool, we can now take the generated EPCIS messages that were created. We can choose the interface of how we want to communicate that to our L4, L5 system to facilitate a test. And then the tool will give us, direct feedback about whether or not the communication of messages to your L4, L5 system was successful. So again, this is now how you're actually getting into executing tests using the materials, the EPCIS test data, and the PDF barcode reports that the Jennason Serialization test tool produces for you. I hope this little mini webinar was helpful. Again, just one of the many use cases of how the serialization test tool is really a key part for many pharma manufacturers as part of their serialization programs. Certainly feel free to reach out to Jennason for more information and to schedule a deep dive demonstration of the tool itself. Thanks again.